Hello, my name is Glendy Marmesa, and today we will be focusing on internet privacy and testing whether or not Cambridge Analytica's actions using Facebook was ethical or not. Now, moving forward, I will be discussing what internet privacy is, an ethical situation that has occurred, ethical standards and what they are, and using these standards to test the situation being provided. Finally, I will come to a conclusion based on the given situation and discuss the responsibilities that the company must improve on. Now, when it comes to internet privacy, we first have to define it. Therefore, internet privacy actually refers to the vast range of technologies, protocols, and concepts related to giving individual users or other parties more privacy, protections, in their use of the global internet. However, one example of a big technological company is Facebook, which is a multinational tech company, who, as part of their policy, collect millions of users' personal information throughout their social media websites, such as Facebook itself and Instagram as well. Nevertheless, as they are a multinational company with millions of users, an important aspect we must focus on is their privacy policy and how, in fact, they collect their data and use it. First of all, it has been shared that Facebook collects information based on what users type and search up in their Facebook profiles, such as online stores, looking up certain individuals, looking up certain companies, etc. They also collect metadata based on whether or not you create a piece of content on their website. And some examples are posting a photo or making a post or any other form of content. And lastly, the company focuses on the pages you follow to provide you similar content through their algorithms. Now, with knowing this information, we will now discuss on an ethical situation. So basically, what happened? As I previously stated, Facebook collects all kinds of personal information from their millions of users, and companies reach out to them to reach certain demographics and promote themselves. However, one third-party company that was able to obtain users' data was Cambridge Analytica, which is one of our ethical actors here. And Cambridge Analytica is a British consulting firm that focuses on providing consumer research, targeted advertising, and other data-related services to both political and corporate clients. However, what they ended up doing in this situation was that they collected this information from an external researcher and claimed it to be for so-called academic purposes. In contrast, though, the company indeed actually used the data to run a political propaganda campaign for former President Trump. And finally, another key individual we must focus on is the user that has been affected by the breach of privacy, and that is Anna for this scenario. And another key factor which we've already talked about is Facebook itself. Now, the ethical issues that we will be tackling and testing on will be: was Cambridge Analytica's actions of obtaining users' personal information ethical or unethical as they used it for political propaganda? Also, should Facebook's users trust that Facebook in fact did not know about Cambridge Analytica's actions? And lastly, how in fact does this help or harm Facebook's users, such as our ethical actor, Anna herself? However, before we move on, we first must define and determine what ethical standards are. And an ethical standard refers to the principles that promote trust, good behavior, fairness, and governing the conduct of a person or entity. However, as discussed in class, we have already determined these as the conditions that will be used to determine whether the actions of the previously mentioned situation is considered ethical and good for society and individuals involved. And these standards are productivity, security, health, and happiness. However, when it comes to these standards, we have to make sure that they either improve or diminish these standards. For example, productivity, it must either improve or diminish productivity for an individual in this situation. And if it diminishes productivity, it will help determine whether it's ethical or not. And this goes along for security, health, and happiness as well. And in addition to this, for the situation or scenario to be considered ethical or unethical, it must meet all of the standards given. Now, as we know what the ethical standards we will be using to test, we can now discuss the actions of the situation that are considered ethical versus unethical. Now, I will begin with the ethical portion. Clearly, as we can see here in this section, the only standard that is viewed as ethical is productivity, which is affected. However, the productivity is increased solely for Cambridge Analytica as it helps them to create propaganda campaigns for their clients in a faster and easier way, now that they have the user data from Facebook. However, for the unethical portion or the unethical side, we can clearly see that it causes more unethical issues than most, such as it definitely decreases health, specifically for Anna, due to the fact that it causes her anxiety due to the news coming out that her personal information and digital habits have been leaked and used without her consent. In addition to that, Anna and Facebook's happiness also gets diminished due to the fact that this leak of information has hurt both individuals or entities. Also, it diminishes their happiness due to the fact that Cambridge stated that the information was received by an external researcher for academic purposes when in fact they were used for political campaigns, thus realizing that they were in fact lying based on the actions that they were doing. And lastly, the security ethical standard was also not reached due to the fact that there was a lack of security of Anna's data from Facebook and was used for purposes that neither agreed to, so thus causing a lack of security and trust in both Anna and Facebook in regards to Cambridge. Now, finally, with this test, using the ethical standards, we can determine that Cambridge Analytica's actions are considered unethical. This is due to the fact that the given situation doesn't check off to all the ethical standards we have defined. Also, these unethical actions ultimately do harm the users and the company of Facebook itself for this information, and ultimately promotes bad behavior as well. And lastly, Cambridge Analytica should be held responsible for obtaining people's personal information without consent from all the individuals involved. Therefore, here's my final presentation, and thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.